This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
I'm Neil Cairns in London, trying to understand those wonderful, wandering Chinese elephants.
And I'm Chinny Somara, investigating how renewable energy can be stored as liquid air.
The world, and particularly China, has been captivated by a herd of wild Asian elephants who left southern China's Xishuangbunan National Reserve in March last year. They've slowly made their way north across Yunnan province, recently skirting Kunming, the home of this year's COP15 Biodiversity Conference, to be held in October. This herd may now be turning back, but it turns out that this is not the first time that elephants have left reserves in the south.
Actually, back to 1990s, we observed that elephants started to disperse. But this kind of long-distance movement, over 500 kilometers, I think we have never ever seen this in human history.
Becky Xu Chen, like the elephants, is from Yunnan province. She's also a member of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature Asia Elephant Specialist Group. She's keen to make clear exactly what's going on here.
The movement of the elephants is not migration, it's dispersal. So why migration is something that the animal go from A place to the destination B place. But actually, so this animal is going to somewhere, they don't know the direction and they don't have a destination. So usually we call this dispersal. So elephants, they are large animals. It means they need a big house and they need to eat a lot, like 200 kilograms a day. So back to 1970s, so elephants, they are only living inside the strictly protected national nature reserves, and outside are all surrounded by rubber plantations because elephants love tropical areas, but actually these areas are also very good for plantations. But today, our elephants' population doubled. We have 293 elephants now, which means that they need more spaces and they need more food to eat. So since 1990s, elephants started to roam out from reserves. And something interesting happened. When they get outside of the reserve, they eat the maize, bananas, and the rice. And they found this kind of human food are more delicious and has more nutrients. So the Chinese scientists, they just discovered. So for the elephants in southern China, they prefer the mixture of the landscapes to the intact forest. It means half natural forest, but in combination with other human settlements, human agricultural land, or human plantations. So actually, even you have very good forests, they don't stay. They can easily go out to have easier access to more delicious food.
But that's not very good if you're a farmer.
Yeah, it's not very good for the farmers. The farmers experienced the human-elephant conflict since 1990s. I think they suffered as well. But since early 2000s, China also introduced the compensation scheme, trying to offset the farmers' loss to the crop breeding.
So when there is human-elephant conflict, that compensation, is it easy to claim for farmers?
Yeah, the compensation is easily accessible to the farmers, but seeing that the traditional compensation, so you cannot really pay for the loss according to the market value. So people get some compensation, but still they are losing the money. Yeah, compare with the fact they can sell the products to the real market price.
You made a distinction between a migration and a dispersal. Are these elephants just following the food?
I think so, actually. The elephants are eating machines. So they don't have like natural predator. So what they do every day is trying to looking for food. They eat like 200 kilograms a day. So they spend like 18 hours trying to find the food. So I think they just follow the like open area. For example, if you look into the movement routes, you can see they are along the open area near the roads. Because on the side of the roads, it's almost like a flat area with more open spaces and with like more agricultural land.
The compensation scheme was never designed to deal with a dispersal like this, though, which makes it very challenging for the government, because obviously no one wants to see these elephants harmed in any way.
Actually, elephants will be the priority for Chinese government and for Chinese people. So I think they will try the best to find a way to coexist with this large animal.
So what's the likelihood of getting these elephants who've roamed so far to return to their home?
Well, this is very difficult, and I think this is not even up to humans' decision, it's animals' decision. So there's something we always think we plan out something for the animal, but you really find out animals are not thinking the way humans are thinking. So there could be some chance, like elephants, they have very good navigating system, so maybe they can find a way back, but maybe they will prefer to stay.
But say they prefer to stay near an urban area or a highly farmed area, what's going to be the outcome? Because that's not going to be sustainable for the human population.
Yeah, it will not be sustainable, especially we think one of the biggest challenge to conserve elephants is human-elephant conflicts. So if elephants are getting to the new area, so with the communities who have never seen them before, there could be something unexpected happen. For example, if people they don't know how to get along with elephants, if they meet with elephants in the narrow paths, elephants will injure them or even kill people. So in the history of China, I think more than 60 people lost their life to elephants. So it's not easy to say you can use in the compensation scheme to pay for the human's life. So this can dramatically reduce the tolerance about elephants. So this is what we don't want to say.
Yes, that would be terrible if there was a death at any stage due to this dispersal.
Yeah, but right now, so I think general public, they are very supportive, and you can see that people really love elephants, and even if you see like Weibo or WeChat articles, and people are like preparing food, like the farmers. Like right now, elephants are in Yimen of Yuxi, and the farmers, they are worried that the elephants, they are starving because they come to the new climate zone, like totally different landscapes. So they are like voluntarily gather the bananas crops together, trying to give the government to feed the elephants. Yeah, but if something happens, it means people may not tolerate elephants anymore. So this could be very detrimental.
Elephants were designated as a Class 1 protected species as far back as 1988, with penalties of up to 10 years in prison for killing one. Do you think the migration is going to help raise awareness of the need to conserve these animals worldwide?
Yes, I think. Yeah. So for example, back to 10 years ago, I started to work on elephants, and I did some surveys about general public. And maybe only 3% of the people I surveyed, they knew about human-elephant conflicts. And whenever I went to conference, then the people was shocking that we had elephants in China. They didn't know that before. So I think, because of this event, it's more like a wake-up call, so that more people are getting interested in elephants. So they start to develop certain emotional connection with elephants, as you can see in the picture behind me. So it's very popular, and people don't know actually elephants, they are lying down to sleep. And they are also like family. So I think if we get those kind of emotional bond, so people will more care about the species.
You know, they make me think about the Gaia hypothesis, you know, the idea that the world is one organism and it will eventually correct itself. So it seems almost spooky that they made their way to Kunming, the home of this year's biodiversity conference. It's almost like they're bringing a message. Yeah,
it's a message. So we can see a lot of people are posting that, elephants are attending the COP15 that will be held in Kunming in October. So I hope that this movement, although it's also a challenge story, I will not say it's a sad story, but a challenge story, but I hope that this can really wake up people to look into the issue. And also for the COP15 will be held in Kunming, this time they added like one more target in the framework, the human-wildlife coexistence. So I think the visit of elephants to wake up people to look into these issues, because so we hope to have growing animals. This is what we want want to see. Like China only have 300 elephants, so we want to have more elephants. We want more elephants to establish new populations. We hope that elephants can recover the populations in their historical range. But it's also very challenging how they can coexist with people because limited land, you have the increasing urbanization as well. So how you can having a animal but also having happy people, this could be a challenge task that all the scientists together with governments, with NGOs need to work together to find the answer. And for the elephants, for example, I think many farmers, they also suffered because whatever they grow, elephants will eat them. So it's not sustainable. So how to come up with alternative livelihoods is one of the key questions, especially for those rubber plantations. It's already so old. So actually the rubber cannot generate income anymore. Yeah, and at the same time, the market price for rubber collapsed. So maybe this is just opportunities for us to think about the core management plan, whether we can return these rubbers back to the elephants.
The elephants are also reminding us of something that the pandemic has already taught us, that we need to make space for the wild, that we need to have buffer zones between wild populations and human populations.
Yeah, I agree. So China established the Panda National Park, and then Snow Leopard National Park, and I know that the Asian Elephant National Park is already sitting there in that proposal. So as you mentioned, we need a buffer zone, but in Sichuan because it's a great land, like a lowland tropical region. So it's good for economy and it's also very good for biodiversity. So how to come up with a plan to help the elephants to live there and how to also help the communities to live there. I think it's very important issues to look into.
You mentioned the snow leopard and panda parks. Did that involve buying land back off local people?
I would say it's like a co-management. So you still have communities living inside the national park. For example, I went to Qinghai National Park and they found their Tibetan villagers living inside. So they still managing their land, but they still have the snow leopard on the backyard. So I think for the national park, it's coming up with some strategies how to help the communities to develop livelihoods that not threatening the animal, and at the same time how to help them to get the offset from protecting this animal.
Well, we're learning, aren't we, that we're going to need to put at least 30% of our land and oceans into reserves if we're going to protect our biodiversity. And it's clear that China is keen to step in this direction, hosting the biodiversity conference, and especially with the realization that we're getting to the point of no return.
Yes, the leadership, I think. China advocates on the ecological civilizations. I think this is the one of the great case studies to show that how we can move towards the ecological civilization.
You can see more of Razor on our YouTube channel. Search for Razor Science Show and it will take you straight there. Remember to subscribe and hit the bell button for notifications.
On the agenda with me, Stephen Cole, we look up into space. We look down into data. We look at debt. We look at politics. We look at opioids, climate change. We look at all the issues that really matter around the world. But you matter too. We want to tell the stories you want to see and hear about. Make it your agenda.
"2021 is the year of COVID-19 vaccines and variants. Vaccines have been a remarkable success story of the COVID-19 pandemic. A range were rolled out in just a year, with clinical trial data suggesting very high levels of effectiveness against SARS CoV-2 infection. Early real-world data also demonstrated a high level of protection against severe COVID-19 disease, which means overall, vaccines work incredibly well at protecting people against hospitalisation and death. The chink in the armour of vaccines are variants. At the beginning of 2021, alpha, beta, and gamma were identified variants of concern. These all had apparently different points of origin and different properties that threatened degrees of increased transmissibility, disease severity, and vaccine evasion. Lab studies showed that overall, only a small degree of vaccine protection was lost in the face of these new variants. Except for one caveat, with the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine and the beta variant, which had a more significant drop in protection. This was also evidenced in a clinical trial in South Africa, which had to be stopped when the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine did little to stop SARS CoV-2 infections. This was enough to worry scientists that SARS CoV-2 could still mutate into a more severe, more transmissible, and more evasive virus that could cause another potentially more deadly wave of the pandemic. Those fears were confirmed with the arrival of the Delta variant in India. After an extremely deadly wave in India, the Delta variant has now spread to several countries around the world, including the US and UK. These two countries have had some of the fastest vaccine rollout programs in the world, yet the Delta variant is rising exponentially. So what's happening? In the UK, which has some of the best genomic sequencing in the world, scientists at Public Health England have been rapidly compiling data to provide a detailed overview of the Delta variant situation. Their research has concluded that the Delta variant is much fitter in the evolutionary sense, being approximately 60% more transmissible than the previously dominant Alpha variant, which again was already about 50% more transmissible than the original SARS-CoV-2 virus. There is also a double risk of hospitalization with the Delta variant. But what about vaccines? That's where there is some good news. After 2 doses of either the Oxford AstraZeneca, Moderna or Pfizer, which are currently being used in the UK, vaccine effectiveness is around 80%. The bad news is that after only 1 dose, effectiveness is much lower than with the other variants, providing much weaker protection. The UK's decision to distance vaccine doses 12 weeks apart means that a large portion of the population only have 1 dose at the moment, meaning that many are still vulnerable to infection and COVID-19 disease. This is possibly one reason why cases are rising so rapidly. But will high case numbers lead to high levels of hospitalizations in a highly vaccinated population? Early indications are hopeful that they won't. The link between cases, hospitalizations, and deaths has been weakened, although not broken. Vaccine effectiveness against hospitalizations for the Delta variant is 75% for 1 vaccine dose and 94% for 2. This means that the majority of those double vaccinated, if infected with SARS-CoV-2, will have much milder COVID-19 disease than those who are unvaccinated. The arrival of the Delta variant and the impact of the wave of infections that hit India heralds a troubling new stage of the pandemic. Vaccines are still effective, but 2 doses are needed to give the best protection. It's a race against time, as the Delta variant has been detected in over 80 countries and counting, many of which are only at the very beginning of their vaccine rollout. And with 11 billion doses needed to vaccinate the world, according to the World Health Organization, but only 1 billion promised by the recent G7 meeting, the non-equitable vaccine rollout means there are many opportunities for the virus to continue to spread and mutate, which could lead to a new vaccine-evasive variant. It's becoming a mantra that policymakers all over the world need to remember. We're not safe until we're all safe. For more science, behind-the-scenes insights, groundbreaking research, and even some fun, check out our Razor podcast. Search Razor Sounds on all major streaming platforms, and remember to subscribe so you don't miss out on any episodes.
Search CGTN Europe wherever you get your podcasts to subscribe to The Agenda podcast. The Agenda with me, Stephen Cole, always gets to the heart of the story. Just subscribe today and listen now.
L'accord de Paris pour le climat est accepté.
In 2015, the Paris Agreement was signed as part of a global effort to reduce climate change. Part of the agreement was to limit carbon emissions from energy plants powered by fossil fuels. This was just one factor in increasing interest in renewable energy from sources such as sunlight, wind, tides and geothermal. But renewable energy has one major downside. Once it's been generated, it needs to be used immediately, otherwise it just gets lost. You could try and store that surplus energy, but it requires highly efficient battery power, which has been keeping scientists challenged for years. But now there's a radically different and environmentally friendly way of capturing and storing that surplus renewable energy, and it all comes out of thin air. Javier Cavada is Chief Executive of Highview Power, which is developing an energy system designed to solve the problem of storing surplus renewable energy, meaning energy grids in the future could be powered entirely by renewables.
In a highly renewable grid, more than 50% of the times the renewable power that is generated is not being utilized because the demand and the generation is not happening at the same time.
Yeah. So 50% is wasted?
More than 50%, that's what is being declared.
And it's that unused 50% that Highview Power are hoping to store so that it's not lost.
You can see such a sunny day, so windy, all the power that you can generate, and well, after 4 o'clock, everybody's turning on the gas.
So essentially, it's bringing stability to a very unstable source of energy.
Yeah, exactly, and he knows it, and so that there is so much power available from the Mother Nature, and so much wind, so much solar, and then when the lights are off after 4 o'clock until 9 or 10, so 5 or 6 hours, many millions of people turning off the radiators, turning the heaters, burning stuff, while during the day we have been wasting and wasting. That's what we fix with our technology. We store it all, and we have it all for, and not for 10,000 people, for millions. A normal Highview Power system is going to provide power to 50,000 people, to 100,000 people, depending on the size, for as many hours as we need.
I've come to Birmingham University to visit the Birmingham Centre for Energy Storage, and it's where really the idea for this technology is being developed. Professor Yu Longding is the inventor of the liquid air energy storage technology, or cryobattery, and led the initial stage of technology development with Highview Power. They've built a small pilot plant located on the Birmingham University campus that's capable of powering hundreds of homes, and it's all based on storing energy by cooling air to extremely low temperatures. What are the key components of your technology?
Liquid air storage technology uses excessive energy, which is the electricity mainly, to compress and liquefy air and to give liquid air. And liquid air is something like water, but at minus 196 degrees, you can store that at almost ambient pressure. So, and energy density is quite high. So you only need a small space to store that liquid air. When you need energy, what you do, you pump it up to a higher pressure, and you use environmental heat to heat it up, to vaporize liquid air, and which expand about 700 times to drive a turbine to produce electricity back to the grid. That's how it works.
Surplus renewable energy is used to compress air. It's then also used to cool that air, in this case to minus 196 degrees Celsius. At this temperature, air becomes a liquid, which can then be stored in the equivalent of giant thermos flasks. When environmental heat from normal air is added, the liquid air heats up and expands, returning to its gaseous state. It's this rapid expansion from liquid to gas that creates the pressure to drive electricity generating turbines.
So before you go, we have to give you the lab code first, and with the goggles, which is, I think the goggles is in the pocket.
Yet another lab, another lab code.
Okay, this is the whole lab scale system to demonstrate how liquid air is expanded, drive a turbine and produce electricity.
Okay,
So
so you've
this-
got your liquid nitrogen there.
Yeah, to simulate liquid air
Okay.
and pump it up using the pressure itself. Being heated up, we use water to simulate the ambient heat. And then this will drive a turbine.
So the magic is in seeing this turbine spin.
Yes, and that will drive a generator producing electricity. And you will see the numbers, digits come up, which means electricity being produced.
Okay, so we want these numbers to change here. Right now it's 0.
Yes, so you want to see now?
Yeah,
So
let's do it.
What I need to sort of wear some gadgets because it's quite cold and can easily freeze stuff. So what I do, I'll turn this gradually, and you will see. And you can see the digits changes. So
Yeah,
so you can see that that's producing electricity.
so we're going up to almost 10.
Yeah. So, and that depends on spinning speed.
So that's now gaseous air
Yeah.
driving that turbine.
Yes. So, and you can see the cooling effect as well.
Wow, look at that.
Highview Power has built a plant in Manchester that shows that this is possible on a larger scale.
So, this is the functioning plant.
It is, yeah. It's our Pilsworth site, just north of Manchester. So it's just like any other battery you get, where you get a charge, a store, and a discharge part of the process. So if you look behind you there, that's effectively where we're storing active power in the form of liquid air. Each tank's about 100,000 litres.
So you've got extreme cold
Yep,
and extreme heat in those.
correct. Coming together in the heat exchanger, which is up there.
Right.
So they come together, massively expand, send it into the turbo expander. So it goes into the turbo expander, it expands. When it in that expansion, it cools again. So the gas then comes out again into another heat exchanger. We put more heat in, so we do that 4 times through the 4 stages of the turbo expander. So the turbo expander is then coupled to a generator, but then they'll convert that energy into electrical energy, which we then export onto the grid.
Essentially, they're reusing heat and cold, produced during the process and by the neighbouring landfill site, to boost the efficiency of the expansion process.
A plant of this size, what would it typically power in terms of number of homes?
So this is a small plant and is not the commercial scale plant we're looking to build. This plant is 5 megawatts, which is about 5,000 homes. But if we therefore built a 100 megawatt plant, which is what we intend to do, then it would generate power for a mid-sized town, such as Bury nearby.
And the technology that exists here, how easy is it to scale that up?
So these big tanks where the liquid air is stored, basically that's a big thermos flask. So it's a very low-cost way of keeping liquid cool. And because the thermos flask is a relatively cheap part of our plant, that means if you simply want more storage, say 5 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, then you're simply building the cheapest piece of the plant.
And how are you hoping to physically do that in the UK?
So we're hoping to build on a commercial scale our first project in the UK towards the end of this year, and our first project in the US probably 3 to 4 months later, so early next year. And as I say, these will be at the kind of 50 megawatt scale, so 10 times this scale. And once we build our first, we believe that's going to attract a lot of global interest because we do think it is a global application. And that will really spur the development of further projects. Using the cheapest fuel around, which is what we breathe, and we're converting it into something which I think is going to be very useful, namely translating the benefits of renewable energy 24/7 right across the day.